So hello everyone, just wanted to welcome you to episode 3 of our CiviCRM.Tea series that we're running. In this particular episode we're going to be doing a session on CiviRules, and if you have any suggestions, just checking a few messages. So yeah, if you have any suggestions while you're watching, please do throw them onto the live chat on YouTube. We're hoping this is going to be a bit of an interactive session where you can put forward issues or things you'd like to see on rules and how it works. So in this session we're going to be going through and just setting up some rules with some examples. I'll talk a bit about what rules are, how they work with workflow, or how you would implement workflow using CiviRules. We'll go through some of the nuances and recommendations from us on how to set them up. Just in case you've not watched one of our previous episodes, I'm Parvez from Veda Consulting. I'm donning a cap today. It's pretty windy outside. I'm not sure what that's got to do with a cap, but anyway, I'm wearing a cap. And you might see my dog Bumpsy at some point walking around behind. He's currently sleeping, but if you do see him, feel free to shout out and say hello. Okay, so let's get into this. So I have a presentation. I'm just going to switch scenes. There you go. 1 second. Sorry, 1 second. I'll just need to sort out the chat window. Okie dokie. 1 second. We should be done with that. Okie dokie. Okay. Yeah, I was just making sure the chat window was correct there. Okay, so let's get on with this. So yeah, like I say, we are I'm from Veda Consulting. We're a CiviCRM partner, a gold partner and a contributor. We've been working with CiviCRM for almost 10 years now. Well, I've been working with it longer than that, probably 13 years, 14 years, but 10 years as Veda. And we're going to do workflow for CiviCRM. So let's talk a bit about that. So what is workflow? So according to the English dictionary, a sequence of industrial, administrative or other processes through which a piece of work passes from initiation to completion. Sometimes you often, as kind of micro charities or smaller charities, you'll talk to suppliers and they'll use these terms. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was on the same page in terms of what is workflow. So workflow is really the delivery of pieces of work. So how do you get from an idea or an action to an output? That really is a bit of workflow. And the output could be anything. It might not be a physical piece of output that goes back to a customer. It might be some data output that you need to happen. It might be something that needs to be alerted internally. It could be anything, but it's basically an outcome that you're expecting the system to perform for you or people to perform for you. This doesn't make any differentiation between electronic or otherwise. So workflow is workflow really. Sorry, 1 second. Let me just check. One sec, we seem to be having a couple of issues with the chat, so let me just see. Oh, no, it's fine. Okay, there's a few messages from some of the guys. Okay, doke. So yeah, that's workflow, and workflow is important here because often as a micro charity stroke small organization, you're trying to automate some of the processes that you've got. So automation is kind of digital transformation, if you like. So you're trying to turn administrative manual tasks into automated tasks as far as possible. So the idea is, you reduce the amount of administrative work you're having to do, so that you can focus on trying to fulfill your charitable aims, or trying to increase your supporter base, or whatever it is that you as a business are trying to do. The problem with micro charities, again with smaller charities, and I keep using that term because we often work with larger charities where some of these processes are not really a problem. They're already defined, or there's already documentation around what happens or what is aimed to come out of some analysis. Whereas with the micro charities, and probably the people that are watching this kind of thing, it's a slightly different problem, in that you don't always even know what you're trying to do. Well, you know what you're trying to do, but you don't know what the process is to get there, or you're not 100% clear about what that process is. So these are some of the hindrances to get you to a successful digital transformation, and that digital transformation involves workflow and CiviRules. So if you are starting out of this journey, my initial stage one recommendation to you guys will be to start documenting your processes, because then you could take those documents and you can start to break them down into workflow / rules, and you can start implementing that almost straight away. There's the idea of having to wait until you've documented everything is often a bit of it's a waterfall approach, right? So the idea is you define everything, and then you get a product that does everything that you've written down. But the problem with that process is that you don't often know what that outcome looks like until you see it. So there may be nuances, there may be things in there that you haven't thought about that you don't often see. So once you've started documenting, you can start to build your transformation in using CiviRules. So how does CiviRules fit into this? Oh, let's just go back. How does CiviRules fit into this? So workflow is just a collection of events, triggers, and outcomes. I'm not using the word event because I didn't want to confuse people in thinking it was Civi event. So I'm using the word trigger, but really it's an event. It's something that happens somewhere. Hopefully it's captured electronically, and then there's some outputs that you want from that trigger. So that's workflow. So CiviRules aims to turn the trigger and outcome into a configurable process, right? So there's something that you guys can set up without having to code. You can, as developers, we can add more rules and more workflows and more triggers and things like that. But out of the box, there's quite a lot you can do without needing to get into development or hire developers. So like I say, the CiviRules brings workflow to end users. So the idea is you don't need to know how to program to start configuring your system to fit your business, to fit your charity, to fit what you want to happen. And it really does open up a lot of doors. It means that you can amend your processes in an agile manner. So you're not having to pay for consultancy every time you want to change something. So I'll go through some of these examples and explain what I mean there. But let's say as an example, I've got, I'm doing a newsletter, and I want when someone signs up for a newsletter, I want to send them a welcome email. That's where I might start my process, and I might say, right, okay, that's what I want to do. But then I realize actually I've got members, I've got people who were in that newsletter group before, have unsubscribed and resubscribed, and then I've got VIPs, and I've got Parliament members, and I've got all kinds of people, and I didn't really think about them. So initially, I just did want new subscribers to get an email, but I might want to change that. So that's the agile manner of approaching rules. You can start by creating one and then refine until you get to where you want to be, and you can have more rules to cater for all the edge cases. So you can do that in agile. You don't have to wait to kind of define everything and kind of turn it into a bottleneck at your end. One of the main things that CiviRules brings is the need for development effort. So previously you would have used schedule reminders, maybe some activities, maybe a few other bits and pieces like that to try and make some workflow happen. But the rest of the system, you would have had to got some development effort into to program those triggers and events and outcomes. But CiviRules makes that a process that you can just configure. You don't need to get development involved or developers involved even. One of the key bits that CiviRules brings about is being able to get around some of the nuances of CiviCRM. So an example is some of the system workflow messages are not the best, not the easiest to configure. So using CiviRules, I can get around that problem by using Mosaic or email templates or PDF templates and firing them out, as well as a receipt, which is what I'm using the Civi workflow for. So I can start to work around usability issues that I might have, or technical knowledge that I don't have. I can start working around it. And the main, like I say, the main thing is that rules helps you get your CiviCRM working for you, rather than you trying to work for it, i.e. you trying to work to maintain data and maintain engagement. You can start to get CiviCRM to do that for you through CiviRules. So let's just go to the next one. Oh, sorry about that. It wouldn't be a presentation without a slight technical hitch in there, would it? Oh. So yeah, we're talking about that. So what makes up CiviRules? So CiviRules is based on three things. There's a trigger, a condition, and then an action. So the trigger is what event am I using? What event do I want to carry out an action on? So some examples of triggers are when someone's added to a group. For example, is a trigger when someone signs up for a membership, when someone partakes in an activity, i.e. you've recorded a phone call that they made to your organization, or there was an email correspondence in, etc., etc. There could be an activity that you want to say, when this happens, I want to do something, and they complete a profile or a web form or a Caldera form, which updates some CiviCRM information. For instance, there may be things you want to fire at that point. There is a rule for specifically for web form submissions in CiviCRM and Drupal as well that you can use. So if someone does submit a form, regardless if there's a change or not, you can capture that event. So the condition. So, for instance, if someone's added to a group, that's not enough for me to know to know what to do. So often I have to put some conditions around that. So I need to know which group it is that they're added to. So that's where I'll define some conditions around that. So if they sign up for membership, it might be full members get a particular type of email, student members get a different one, etc., etc. So I'd have 3 or 4 rules, each with the same trigger, but with different conditions for the different subsets of people that I'm talking to. And then the action. So what do I want to do? So often the main use case for rules is output, i.e. Outward facing comms. For example, sending an email is the most common one. But there might be more that I want to do. I might want to generate a PDF. I might want to notify internal staff. I might want to create an activity, relationship, etc., etc. There might be a bunch of things that I want to do, which are the actions. So they're the 3 things that make up a rule. I've put down a few examples of workflow that we might try today. So the intro email to newsletter subscribers is one that I've talked about before. So someone opts into to the newsletter group, and you want to communicate with them. So you want to send them a bit of an intro into what they're going to start receiving, thank them for signing up, onboard them in effect, so that they're aware of what type of comms they're going to start receiving. So that might be an example of a workflow that I want to implement using CiviRules. Another one might be if I've got new joiners. I'm a membership organization, I've got new joiners, and I need to send them some form of welcome email with a welcome pack attached. Now there, again, as I said before, I might want to send something specific to their membership type, so it's not a generic kind of pack they're getting. And this, number two, you might already be doing that using the CiviCRM welcome emails. The problem there is they're not that configurable. They're not. I can't really send a pack. I couldn't send a different one depending on each membership type without getting into Smarty and some heavy customization. I couldn't really do all that. So with rules, I can control it a bit better. So that might be another example we'll try and work through. Example number 3 might be if we're trying to engage with donors who've given. So it might be a certain amount, they've given over $100/pounds, and I want to send them something specific or add them to a group, or I want to thank them in a certain way, or maybe I want to try and upsell them a membership or give them a free membership even. There might be all kinds of things that I want to do there. So that's another example. The fourth one might be a bit more of a business issue, i.e. it's a branding issue that I've got, which is I can't brand my outputs from Civi the way I want to brand them because I'm using standard workflow emails, system workflow emails and system messages and things like that, and it's not really working for me. So it might be that I'm trying to improve my branding experience. So I'm going to start using rules to take over some of the messaging that Civi would put out, and I'm going to leave Civi to do its own messaging, but call it receipts or call it transactional emails, try and brand it in a certain way. And lots of large e-commerce sites do similar things. You'll often get 3 or 4 emails, you won't just get the one. So I tend not to shy away from getting multiple emails as long as it's clear what it is that I'm receiving. So that might be something I try and do. I've put number 5 in there. If you want to ask on the YouTube chat, we can try and do others if there are examples that people have got. So extensions I'm actually using a couple more, but they're not on this. But the key ones are CiviRules. So that's the main extension that implements CiviRules. I've got the CiviRules logger because I want to see when there are issues. The CiviRules logger helps me identify what those issues were. So often if I'm doing agile kind of building my rules and just playing and seeing how I get on, if I can get to 90% of what I'm trying to do, then I've done well. So there might be some issues that I hit along the way, and I want to see what's gone wrong. So logger helps me see that. I've got the email API because I want to send emails from my rules as an output. I've got the PDF API because I want to send potentially produce PDF documents and also send them out. I've got FlexMailer and Mosaico message templates. So I'll explain each one of them. So FlexMailer sits hand in hand with Mosaico because it lets me start overriding the default CiviCRM bulk email processes. So if I want to install Mosaico, which is a rich email template building tool, I need FlexMailer to do that. So I need those two. And then the Mosaico message templates one is one that R4 Robots produced, and it automates a hack that people tend to use, which is copying the HTML from Mosaico emails into system workflow messages. So that automates it. So I can create my template and then it will automatically populate system templates with Mosaico look and feel. So I end up with responsive, clean, well-built templates that are all in my system workflow. Or I can use them in my system workflow because they're message templates. So I'm using those. I think I've got 1 or 2 more, but if I if I come across them, I'll point them out. And obviously you can have more. I've got Shasha in there as well. I'm not particularly using it here, but the opportunity is there if anybody wants to ask about it. I've not finished yet, so let's go. So that was my attempt at a bit of G'ing myself up. So let's do this demo. So let's go to 1 second. So I'm in my, let's go back to the home. So I've got a CiviCRM.D7 demo. It's the one that I always use for the CiviCRM.TV episodes, and the list of extensions is what I put in there. Put in the slides. There's nothing else special on this. There's I've got CiviCRM web form and web form because it's a Drupal installation. Everything that I'm about to do, apart from the web form, you'll be able to do on WordPress as well. So there's no issue there. I just use Drupal because we have Drupal resource in house, and they had a bit of time to build me an environment, so it's a bit easier for me to do that. I'm also using Mailtrap. I'll just move it over so everything's in the right order. Let's close that. And yeah, so I'm also using Mailtrap because Mailtrap lets me take my email output from CiviCRM. So normally I would configure outbound email in Civi to go somewhere. Or to connect to an SMTP server, or to redirect to the database, or do something. What we tend to do is connect it to a Mailtrap utility. In this instance, I'm using Mailtrap because I'm not doing anything sensitive. There's no client information. If it was one of our clients and we could have potentially privacy issues, then we wouldn't use Mailtrap. We have our own kind of built-in facilities to do this, but I'm using Mailtrap because as a micro charity, that's probably what you'd end up doing, just to see how output looks and avoid keep emailing yourself, etc., etc. So any emails that I send out from Civi are going to come into Mailtrap, and we'll be able to see them there. And I've also got the CiviCRM CiviRules document. So we can have a quick look. Like I say, it's talking about the same things that I talked about: triggers, conditions, actions. Triggers, it's interchangeable with events. It's just not Civi event. Conditions are the conditions I want to put around: am I capturing that trigger or not? And the action is the output. So they've got some examples in there as well. You can always work through those. I haven't even looked at it, to be honest, but I'm hoping it's not too dissimilar from what we're doing. I put the email API and the PDF API extensions on. I didn't put the SMS one. I've got no intention of sending an SMS, and I don't have a gateway to send it from anyway. But if you wanted to SMS people from Civi, it's perfectly possible with the API. And I think there's half a dozen or so gateways that you can connect to send out SMSs. I've got this installed. Do I? I don't know if I do actually. I think I've got web form and Civi web form, but I don't think we've got the Drupal module that actually captures submissions. I don't need it for what I'm going to present anyway. I'm only dealing with data, so I'm doing all rules that are around Civi and not external systems. I'm not around Drupal, not around WordPress. I'm only focusing on Civi related events at the moment. Okie doke. So that's that. There's a bit of example. It's funny. This the first time we talked about CiviRules was, I think it was me, Eric, Yap, Michael McAndrew. There's about probably 5 or 6 of us, and it was before that. It was before March 2015. I think it was 2014ish time in the UK in a sprint, and it just reminded me how long it's been. So that was about 6 years ago now. Yeah, maybe longer than 6 years ago. So there's some more history to CiviRules down there. You can always have a read of that if you want to. Let's have a look at what their basic example says before we get into ours. Let's see, introduction, posting. Yeah, we're going to go through all that, so that's fine. Scheduling. So scheduling is important. So CiviRules does rely on the cron. So for those that aren't familiar, in CiviCRM under the administration section, system settings, there's scheduled jobs. So this section basically has all the things that are running in the background of Civi and how often they run. So you do need a cron running for your Civi so that CiviRules can run its checks. And the reason it needs to do it this way is because sometimes I can delay a rule. So I can say, after someone's been to an event, wait for a couple of days before you do something. So it needs to run in a way that is constantly checking the database and it's constantly checking its status as have I done this rule, haven't I done this rule, what ones am I supposed to run next. So that's why you need this. I've got a few other jobs running here as well. We're pruning any login. It doesn't really matter for us because we don't have 3 months worth of data or anything. We've got Chassis turned on as well. And the rest of the jobs that are turned on here are standard jobs. You probably would have a lot more if you've got a production CiviCRM. You'll have schedule mailings probably turned on, reminders turned on, update greetings. You probably have a lot more turned on than what I have, but I'm just doing a minimal demo. So just going back there. So yeah, so it's all about schedule processing, fine. Donor classifications. So this is this is all a bit weird. I will talk about this in the way that I understand it, not necessarily the way that it talks about it. I think there's a bit of translation issues going on here. Field comparisons, yeah, that's fine. We'll show that. This is all around the conditions and how I can check some of the data. Hints. Yep. I don't think there's anything major in there. Okay, and how to make your own. So if you are a developer and you do want to get your hands dirty and try a few rules, this section talks you through how to create your own rules, stroke action, stroke conditions, stroke triggers. So you can, you could create a rule to handle whatever you want. And the advantage of doing it this way, as opposed to just writing an extension that doesn't use rules, is this can be put back into the ecosystem, and then other organizations who may want to do similar things can either use it as it stands or modify it and use it the way they want to use it. So my advice would be to try and do that. If you are engaging a consultancy to do some work for you, always try to get them to do it in rules if it fits there. Okay, doke. So without further ado, so what we're going to do is we'll create a rule around my mailing group. So if I go into manage groups, so I've got a newsletter subscribers group there. It's exposed publicly, and like I said, I'm not worrying too much about external facing things in my CiviCRM / Drupal installation. I'm just worried about internet. When that data comes in from the web form, from the API, and it hits my CRM, what do I want it to do in response? I don't really want to be developing those kind of business workflows into the capture side of things, because I'd have to repeat it at every entry point into data, into my CRM. I'd have to repeat that same piece of work. So for instance, if I programmed it into Drupal web form and then I had an import of subscribers from an event or somewhere else, then I'd have to also then do some work to make sure that when they're imported into the newsletter subscribers group, that same business process is implemented there. So I'd end up repeating it in quite a lot of places. So I tend to always go for the approach of do it at the CRM level if you can, because that way it doesn't matter how data gets into your system, you can you're kind of confident it's reacting and it's going to implement your workflow. So I've got my newsletter subscribers. This is where people who want my newsletter will go. Sorry, I keep checking the time. I should really check it on my watch. Okay, doke. So that's my group. So let's go ahead and create a rule. So let's go manage rules. I will start there because I might have some rules, or often we're looking at existing installations for a client or a potential client, and we want to see what rules are there before we do anything. So I've got, just looking at the criteria, I've got filter triggers. So here I can say show me all rules that pertain to a particular trigger. I've got some tags. I'm not using tags. I will do in this. I'll show you. I'll show you why you would use them. And do I want to see disabled rules? So I've got everything set how it is, and I don't have any rules at the moment. So let's add one, and I'm going to call it not that. I'm going to call it newsletter subscription. Okie dokie, and so what is the point of this? So I'm onboarding newsletter subscribers. Show you in a second. So help text the purpose of raw. I'm not going to put anything in there right now. So the key thing is, what do I want to trigger it in? So I want to do this anytime someone is added to a group, right? So so when I filter the trigger by group, I can see all the group related triggers that I've got. So there's some interesting things there. So daily trigger for group members. So, you know, if I've got some of the spiritual / religious organizations that we work with might have a daily prayer for anybody signed up for the daily prayer members. So that, you know, that's something that you might want on a daily basis, or an update in terms of if you've got volunteers carrying out a beach comb, a cleaning exercise, rescue, whatever. You might have a daily update for them where you're at. So you can have things like that going out. You might have fundraisers with a daily update of how you're getting on. I've also got contact removed from a group. So if a newsletter subscriber was to leave for whatever reason, I could send them an email or a communication at that point. And then I've got actual group things. So these are used for administration, right? So if you know, my users are adding loads and loads of groups, then as a system or database administrator, I might want to know that, and I might want to find out why that's happening, because one of the key, you know, one of the main issues I normally see on CiviCRM implementations is there are hundreds of groups. So by the time you get to look at that implementation, because you know that client is struggling with their existing suppliers, that normally they've got hundreds of groups by that point, and one of the exercises you're trying to do is say, well, why have you got that many, and what is it you're trying to do? So I've got these, I can use those for admin purposes. So for ours, we're just going to do when someone's added to the group. So that's my trigger setup. So you'll notice at this point I haven't mentioned the newsletter group itself, right? There's no indication that it's only those contacts I want to capture. So if I left the condition blank and just added my action, then anytime anyone was added to any group, they would get this email coming out, which is not what I want. So I'm going to add a condition in there, and let's see what group. So here I've got some conditions. I'll come back to this, so we'll edit this and then we'll talk about what some of these mean. But for mine, I want to just check that the group is the newsletter subscribers group. That's all I want to check at this point. I don't want to do any other check. So this is now showing me correctly. My condition is the group is newsletter group. So the link operator is nothing because I've only got one condition. So there's no and or at the moment. There's no need for it because it is just a one-line condition. So you don't need to worry about that at this point. So what do I want to do when they sign up? So I'm going to email them, I think. Yeah. E-mail. Okay. So I'm going to send them an email. So I've got a delay action, right? So I might say, well, don't do it straight away because someone at head office might have made a mistake and imported people they shouldn't have imported. And I don't necessarily want it going straight away. So I might want it going the day after. or something. So the idea here is that I can delay my action by a certain number of days or minutes or weeks or whatever I want. Other situations where that might be useful is event attendance, and I want to do something a few days after, or a week after, a week before, etc., etc. There's no week before actually here, but anyway, these are delays to the action, so they're slightly different. I guess I could put a negative number in. So I'm not doing a delay on mine. I'm just going to say as soon as they're in, because otherwise I can't show you anything. So the delay would mean no emails would come out till tomorrow. So we don't want that. So I'm going to say no delay. So I'm going to save that. When I save that, I'm then presented with what do I want to send out. So I'm going to send it from hello, and I'm going to send it from hello at CiviCRM.Tea. And I'm going to pick, I've created a template before, so I'll come back to this and show you this template, but I just want to show you the trigger firing and just get some kind of output. So location type, in Civi, the emails have different locations. Is it my work email? Is it my home email address? Or what type of email address is? I'm going to leave this blank because I want Civi to pick the primary and just send it to that. There's nothing in there at the moment about the one that is used for bulk emailing, because you can set that. It's something just to be aware of. It'll probably come in the future, but it's not there yet. Send to alternative email addresses is more about capturing. So sometimes we work with organizations that have regions or a branch or a chapter, and it might be that if a subscriber comes in to and they belong to a particular chapter, then I might want to send that person an email. So I might want to say, well, tell so-and-so that they've got a new person who subscribed to newsletters for the London region, so therefore they should be aware of them. So I can do that. I could BCC them in as well. So if I still wanted it to go to the person that triggered the action, then I would just BCC in the London region so they were aware of it. But if I click that, then it will actually send it to whoever I've said instead of the person that subscribed, right? But here I want it to go to the person that subscribed. I want the subscriber to get my welcome email. So let's save that. Cool beans. All right. So I have my rule. That looks good. This line down here, you will only see that if you've got the logging extension enabled. If you haven't, you won't see that. And I've been having a couple of issues with it, but it's kind of working at the moment. So let's hope it continues to do so. Oh, it will only show errors at the moment, right? Because most of the CiviCRM rules setup only logs if there's an error. It doesn't log any successful, it won't log any standard kind of output messages. It's purely about errors. If you're writing your own rules, you could log successful entries as well. We do for some of the stuff we do, just because it makes it easier for clients to see what happened, and when it happened, they can kind of look at that. But at the moment I'm using the standard one, and the standard one's all about the standard rules, and they're all about successful running and only logging failed actions. So right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new contact. Doesn't matter what type, just any person, and I need to think of a name. I don't even know how you spell it, but anyway, that's him. I'm going to put email in. So I've created my contact, and that's going to show me his contact record. So at the moment it doesn't belong to any groups. And just going back here, just going to refresh my email, nothing in my email box. Just going to add him into the group. And like I say, this action, I'm showing it as though a head office admin person has done it, or someone who has access to directly to CRM. But this could have happened from an online form. It doesn't matter where the source of that data was. As soon as it hits Civi, that's really what matters. Okay, so that's added in. That's all good. Let's have a look at more. So in my inbox now, I've got an email. Look at that. that amazing. Right, so so this email looks well good in the true English Cockney sense, but it does look better than the standard emails you get out of Civi, because I'm using Mosaico and I'm using the Mosaico template messaging thing written by Art for Robot or Rich, and therefore I'm able to get a much better branding experience out to my subscribers without having to mess about with HTML and kind of do things like that. So I've got that out, and you'll see in the welcome email message I've got my name in there as well. I've got welcome newsletter king. So and within the email content itself I've got my name in there. So as a person who's subscribed to an email newsletter or to subscribe to anything really, any kind of group, it's a good experience I've had there. I've subscribed to it and I've got a nice welcome email. It looks good, looks quite professional, and it happened straight away, right? So that's a good experience. So how did I get this email? Let's just have a look at the tools that I use. So in the mailing section, you've got Mosaico templates, and in there is where I created this template. So if I just edit that, so I created it there. I messed about a bit with the colors because normally people run Mosaico in the standard colors, but you can change them, right? So you have the ability to take each section to change the styles, to change the style of the whole thing to suit you. So you can create quite good emails. And anybody that hasn't used Mosaico, it's really easy for me to move things around. It's easy for me to add in extra blocks, much like I would do in MailChimp or any of the other kind of mass email tools, modern mass email tools. I get the unsubscribe view in your browser, and I've got all my social media links and everything in there as well. So if you're just using Mosaico and you don't have Rich's extension, then you wouldn't be able to add that easily to the message templates. So if we just have a look at the extensions, so that particular menu option, Mosaico templates, is added by that extension. And Rich, quite rightly says it's experimental, but from my experience, it kind of does what it says on the tin, and it's working for me. And I've got it working with tokens and everything that I'd want in there. So again, if you're not familiar, CiviCRM's token system, or mail merge system, if you want to use traditional Microsoft terminology, then is kind of based around these squirrely brackets. So if I wanted to add another token, when I click into a field, I get this tokens option, and then I can pick whatever field I want to pick. So I can filter it up there. So if I did last name, put last name in there, and that will put in the contact's last name. So the next person that subscribes will get, hey, first name, last name. If I'm really going to do that, I should use Civi's display name, or the greetings. One of the greetings is what I should probably use. So that way they'll get their whatever I've set up their greeting as in CiviCRM. So that's how I got that template coming out. Once I save that becomes available as a message template, and when it becomes available as a message template in CiviRules, then I can pick it. If I just edit it, so once I save that, then I can pick it down here. That's the delay bit. So just there's two edit buttons. Just need to be aware. So once I save it, then it becomes available down here, and I can pick it. Okie doke. So let me just check if there's any messages. There's no chats. Good. Well, good and bad. Okie doke. So that's my first kind of rule, and that's a real simple rule. Not much going on there. So let's try some other rules. So let's try something financial. Right? So let's say when someone donates £100 or more then I want to do something with them, so we can make the rules up as we go along, because my charity is quite flexible like that. So where am I? Yeah, CiviRules. So let's add a CiviRule, and I'm gonna call it, let's go hide donation or tags. Let's do that actually. I'm gonna create a tag, so CiviRule tags. So I'm gonna add a tag, and it will make sense why I'm doing this when we do more. Okay, so I've created my tag. I'm going to my rules now. I'm going to do new rule, and I'm going to pick that, and so this rule is purely about sending an email to them. So this time for my trigger, I'm doing a contribution related trigger. So I'm doing when a contribution is added. And let's do that. So again, right now I don't have any conditions, so this would fire every time any kind of contribution was added, which is not what I want. I'm going to put some conditions around it, so it's donors only, right? So first thing I want to do is contribution even. Contribution financial type is what I want to do it on. So normally in CiviCRM implementation, you will have different financial types for different types of donation or contribution or payment. So for instance, I'll have event fees for any event related income. I will have membership dues for any kind of membership related income. I might have donation. I might have other stuff, you know, like I can segment how I want to store my financial elements within CiviCRM and then map those to the accounting system how I wanted to map them. So I need to restrict my trigger. I don't want it to go to anyone, so I don't want it to go to a member, but just because they paid their membership. I only want it to go to donors. So what do I want it for? So that's a little bit confusing, right? When you read that, it's a contribution is not. So the not is in brackets. So what this is trying to say is, it might be is not. It's up to you. So I'm doing is, and I'm doing is donation, but I might do is not donation. Then anybody who donated, who gave money, but it was not a donation, then they would get this rule would fire for them. So it would kind of inverse it. So if you've got multiple, you know, financial types that represent a donation, I could do it the other way around. But for mine, I'll keep it simple. So I'm saying if they made a financial type and it was donation. So I've got that in, but again, right now, that is saying, right, anybody who gives a donation is going to get my outcome. Now, I'm trying to only do it for high value donations, so I need to add another condition. So this is where the ands and ors comes into it. So I'm saying and. So whatever I've said before, the financial type must be donation, and the amount. Let's look for amount. Yeah. So why they're two? Scary. So total amount contributed is if a person's lifetime giving is more. That's what that is. That total contributed amount. The contribution total amount is for this specific contribution. What was the amount? So they're two different things. The last one I remember right now, we'll come back to it, but they're the two, so I want that one. So what am I saying? I said £100, I think. So it's not empty. There's a whole bunch of conditions in there. They all pretty much they're quite clear in terms of what they mean. So I could do greater than 100, but then if someone gave 100, I wouldn't get them. So I'm going to say greater than or equal to, and it's 100. Again, there's no concept of currency here, right? So if you were doing multi-currency implementations, then just something to be aware of. You might want to have a group or a contribution type or some other way to know which is which. I.e., is it 100 pesos as opposed to £100? That they mean two different things. Okie doke. So now I've got two conditions. I'm happy with that. So what do I want to do? Let's do my action. So I'm going to send an email. No delay. And I'm pausing a bit here because I tried this earlier using a much more complex example and it didn't quite do what I was expecting it to do, so I'm trying to keep it simple. So I'm calling them gold donors, and I'm going to send them a thank you. I'm going to leave everything else. Here, normally, if it was one of our clients, we'd normally be CCing the fundraising manager or someone if there was a high enough value. Like if it was, over a certain limit, then we'd probably be CCing them in, just so they're aware of that's happened and they can always pick up the phone or have some personal touch with that person, that donor. Okay doke. So I've set everything up. Great, hunky dory. So let's try this out. One thing I forgot to talk about. So let's just go back to manage rules. So one of the things in manage rules is down there you can see who was the last contact that rule was triggered for. So that's quite neat, and it shows me when it last ran. So it gives me some assurances that it's running and it's doing something. So now let's go back to Solomon King. And what we're going to do this time is we're going to add a donation. So just try a negative test. So I'm going to do £105 membership due. It's paid by check, or fine, hunky dory. I'm not changing anything else. It's purely a test, so I'm not getting into how you would use any of this. And I'm doing that. So I've made £105 donation membership payment, and I'm using the term membership payment very loosely. I'm simply marking it as a membership due. That's not how you would do a membership payment normally. But I just want to show, does that do anything? No trigger, no email. Let's have a look at the rules. Did it do anything? No, didn't trigger. Right, so that's good. So it's a negative test. And again, smaller micro charities, I always recommend you do a negative test as well as a positive. Your 99% of your issues will be down to what you didn't expect the system to do and it did it, rather than testing what you expected it to do. Normally that bit kind of does what it wants. It's the side effects that you're not aware of. So that's fine. Okay, great. So now I'm going to record a £105. Let's do 200 just to differentiate it. A £200 donation. Right. And let's see what happens there. So same thing. It's recorded. Everything looks good. Let's go to iShout. Oh, blimey! It's actually working. Amazing. Right. So I've got my gold donor. Thank you. So I didn't, what my other option there would have been in here would be to, where's the option? Oh yeah, send a receipt, right? So traditionally, this is how CiviCRM users would have sent out that email correspondence to say thanks. They would have used the receipt functionality in Civi. But like I say, to manage that receipt, to change it, is a Smarty template. It's hard work to make that do what you want it to do. So what these Mosaic templates are not doing at the moment is they're not giving me any kind of financial indicator, right? So there's no indicator of what my donation was here. I'm just giving a generic, your donation will make a massive difference to us. Gold donor, thank you. I could include their name. I could do all the stuff that I did on the welcome email. But what I can't do at the moment is quite get that get their contribution amount or the total amount, or I can't quite get that in there correctly because it's not quite all linked up properly. There's probably some CiviRules out there that let you do it, but not in the standard one. So what I can do is let the receipt go that says thanks for your transactional information, has the transaction ID, has credit card IDs, has all the stuff that it needs to have in it, and then also have this gold donor thank you going out, because everybody should get the receipt, right? So we want every transaction to have a receipt attached to it, but there are different ways to thank the different levels of donation, and there are different journeys that I want to take those people on. There may be different promotions I want to apply. For instance, to a high value donor, I might give them 50% off on a membership upgrade, or I might give them a link to do a free download of an asset. There might be all sorts of things that I want to do. So we're not talking about the technicalities here of what does or doesn't work. So at Civi, we are a very technical community, and often it gets into, but this doesn't work here, or that needs this token because I want to send, I want to do X, Y, and Z. But my advice is try and use the tools for their strengths. So the receipt strength is it knows all of the information about that transaction and will act as a receipt. And often when you purchase stuff, that is the communication you get. You get the receipt, and then you get a either please review your products, or you get some kind of Trustpilot thing, or you get something else which is the touch and the value add to your interaction with that organization. So try and use this stuff that way, rather than trying to replace all of the receipting side of things, because that you'll get a lot more mileage if you approach it that way. One other thing we didn't talk about was, well, why do this, right? Why have these Mosaic templates? We were approached by a potential client a few days, a week or so ago, about wanting to redo their emails because they're not responsive. Using Civi, using Mosaic means they will be responsive. Everything will work. It will scale correctly. It will work on different browsers. It will do different email clients. It will do everything that you need it to do. So that, again, that's a big reason to try and move away from trying to get the receipt and Smarty and HTML to do what you want it to do. That's quite expensive to maintain and look after, and very easy to break, whereas using rules and Mosaic templates will kind of make your life a lot easier going forward. I can replace these images in 2 seconds, right, through the editor. If I was trying to do that through HTML, through Smarty, that's going to take me a long time to get that right and to test it. But going through the I'll just quickly show you, but going through the Mosaic template, I would literally edit that. I could, and let's do it here. Don't know what images I've got there. But let's say the gold down there. Ooh, not allowed. Good. Let's put my logo in. So, for me to put our logo in, this takes like 10 seconds. It's really not hard to do it. And I've got all kinds of control here, so I might say don't show the images at all, just have the sections of text. So there, I'm not seeing images anymore. Don't show the buttons, so images but no buttons. Don't show the title. I've got all kinds of options and things that I can do that are far more powerful than trying to get someone to code them all. So anyway, that's enough hanging on about Mosaic. Let's close that. Okay, so I've got my thing there. So in the kind of spirit of what I advised, I'm going to run another negative test. So I just thought about this whilst I was doing my conditions, and I'm not sure if you can do this, but let's try. So I'm going to do 105, but I'm going to make this pending, right? So I'm expecting it. It hasn't come in yet. What happens now? Am I going to get another thank you? I know the answer to that question, by the way. I'm just kind of answering it. I'm asking it for the sake of asking it. Yeah, I did. So in my rule, I didn't say anything about the status of the contribution. So in the kind of agile way that I'm using rules, that's not a problem. I'll just go into it, and I'm going to add a condition because I've realized I didn't do something. So the contribution status is what I want, and I only want it to be if it is completed, right? So you can see there I've got access to all the statuses, right? So if you start looking at all this, the possibilities of what you could use rules to do is kind of huge. So if I've got pending contribution, I could send out a reminder a couple of days before, a few days after. I could do all sorts of things around that. If something failed, I could I could tell people that your direct debit failed to collect, or your credit, did you try and join and you couldn't. There's all sorts of options I've got there in terms of what I could do. Even if we make a refund, you could set up a rule to automatically tell people about their refunds, etc. There's so many possibilities there. So I'm saying the contribution is completed. So I'm adding that restriction to my rule now. Again, now I'm going to go back in, just run that negative test again. So this time I'm not expecting it to send. Make a donation, 105. I'm going to make that pending. Same thing again. Just come back here. So nothing in my mail trap this time, so that's good. And sorry, we've got some high winds in the UK at the moment. So nothing in my mail trap. That means the rule didn't fire, and that's all good, right? So there, in an agile way, I've started to build out some workflow. I've started to build out, and what this means is now I don't have to have a business process that says to users, all right, when you log in the morning, when you come in, the first thing you do, you check for high value donations, and then you reach out to them. Suddenly I've automated that, so you don't need to do that. I don't need to have that as a business process. I should still document that that's what happens and that's what you do, but the manual administrative effort required to do it is kind of removed now. It's just going to happen automatically, and in that way I can use more journeys to get people where I want to go in terms of the journey I want to take them on, the more workflows to take them on the journey. So that's where Richard's Chassis and a few other tools come in quite useful, that you can start to see how that journey's going, when are people dropping off, when are they dropping out of groups, etc, etc. So let's keep going with this. So I'm doing that. I've added that in, but there's no indication. If I was just to look at King Solomon, I'll never tire of that. If I keep looking at him, then I can't see an indication that he's a high value donor, right? And often a lot of the clients that we work with, and a lot of charities in general, will say, well, we need to see some indicators on the summary page that this person is a high value donor. And there's a few ways to do it. One of the ways is using CiviRules. So again, let's do that. Let's adopt my rule now. So I'm going to make it do a bit more. Now I'm gonna just proviso this. My advice is to keep the rules separate if you can, right? Because it will actually, let's do it. No, I can't bother to set your rule up. Keep them separate if you can, because that way you can, if they're separate bits of workflow, now what I'm doing is different to the outbound communication to the donor. What I'm doing is, this is another bit of workflow that I want to implement, which is to add a marker to that contact, so I know they're a high value donor. That's a separate bit of workflow, so really I should keep that as two separate things, two separate rules. I've talked myself into doing it now, so now I'm going to have to do it separately. So let's go admin, CiviRules, manage rules. I could have just pressed save there, but anyway, that's so now I'm going to call it high value donation. and I'm going to tag them. Description. So what am I doing? Again, contribution. Now this is why, you could argue the other way. Why would you do it as why would you repeat all the conditions, right? And that you could argue that way, but it's just it makes it easier to manage if you've got them all separately in case of failure. So what you don't have is a rule failing and everything failing. You'll have 5 different rules, and if one of them fails, the other 4 would have still kicked into action. And I can show you. I'll do one example of that. The next rule that I set up. So I'm just going to do total amount. I'm not going to do the whole thing. This is total amount is more than is equal to is greater than or equal to 100. So I'm not worrying about the other statuses. I know they should be in there, but I'm just going to leave it like this. And what I want to do is add a tag to the contact. I don't even know if I've got a tag for high value donors, but let's see. Major donor, right? Okay, so I'm going to add that tag to the contact, right? So let's go back in. Okay, I'll create my rules. So save and done. There's all my rules. So I've done that. So I've got my high value tag. Now, what I should have done there was, let's just edit it. This is where the CiviRules tags. It's confusing, isn't it? This is where my collation of rules. I'm trying to say these rules are all to do with high value donation stuff. They're all to do with when a high value donation comes in. These are the things that I want to happen. So I can see now, if I wanted to filter everything to do with high value donation, then I can just filter it and it will show me all the rules that I've got tagged that way. It just makes it easier for me to manage, right? So I've added that, great. So now I'm going to make another one. Let's do another donation for this chap. And so again, donation. 110 this time. It's completed. It's all good. So that's all done. Just going to refresh him. Did it work? Yeah. Amazing. So now he's marked as a major donor. Now I might want to use the summary fields to make that a bit clearer. How I display that is a separate thing, but I've marked him now, so I've tagged him up to say he's a major donor. So if someone's on the phone or someone's looking at this contact record, they don't need to go into the contribution to see the contribution history and to work out if they're a donor of interest or not. They can just see that from the home screen. And using CiviRules, it means that I don't have to worry about maintaining that information. So in the past, we often used to shy away from telling people to do that, because what you want to do is do this in a group. So in the Spider-Man world, with great power comes with great responsibility, right? So I can now do this in CiviRules. I could do it using a smart group. I could still use the manual tags because I might want to decide. There's so many options I've got. But workflow is about delivering outcome. So what I'm not necessarily worried about my options. I'm trying to get to the outcome that I want. And the outcome that I want is I want to be able to see if someone is a major donor, right? So I might choose to do that in groups, and that's absolutely fine. I just need to use another extension to show that on the groups, on the contribution, on the contact summary, or use the contact summary extension itself to rearrange it. And that's fine. The problem with using multiple areas of the system to do one output is then the documentation becomes more important. It becomes more critical in the process. So here, because I've got everything as rules, it's easy for me to see, right? This is how this system is implemented. But if I had part of this as a group and not really documented in this way, then I might not see it, right? So I would then have to rely on organizational documentation to show me how I should be using the system, how it's configured, and where the dependencies are. Because I would have some rules for about what high value donation means in CiviRules, but then I'd also have some rules about what it means in groups. So I've got kind of mixture of different implementations of the same rule, and that's where you can often trip up when you're starting to do implementation. You often be, I'll just use the tag, do that. Well, maybe I should have used a group. Well, okay, I'll do that. Oh, maybe I should have used the rule. I'll do that. Suddenly you've got the same bit of information represented in about 20 places. Sometimes you'll even add a custom field to represent it, and then use summary fields to get another value out, and you'll just end up with 50 different implementations of the same data. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say try it in CiviRules. If you can't do it in CiviRules, then look for an alternative. But whichever way you go, make sure you try and document your processes. Right. So that's that. I'm conscious of time. It is 3:10. What can I do? I had in my mind to do one more. Let's have a look. If I look at the rules, it will probably remind me. Oh yeah, relationship. So I saw on Stack Exchange actually there was a request from someone about linking different organizations contacts. To be honest, I don't know why you would try and do that, but anyway, that I thought maybe there's an interesting example. We often work with fundraising organizations that have links with big retailers in the UK, so things like Wix or B&Q or some of these big kind of chain stores. So what you might want to do, an example of where you might want to link contacts together, is if they subscribe with an email address that is the same domain as the organization that you're aware of. So if I use the example of Amazon, let's use that because that's global. So if somebody uses john@amazon.co.uk to sign up on my website, then I might want to link them to Amazon as an organization straight away, because I know they have some connection to Amazon. They must be, otherwise why are they using an Amazon domain on their email address? So due to the unprecedented conversation happening on the chat, I'm not aware of anything. Let me just check that. Let's check there's nothing on there before I start making these. No, there's nothing on there. So let's just do my example then, seeing as no one else wants anything in particular. So what should we do? Let's start with new organization. No, not a team. I'm just going to do new organization, and I'm going to call it Amazon. I think everyone wishes they had Amazon on their books, but when I'm doing demos, it's easy. Yeah, we know. That's yesterday's security patch it's complaining about. Okay, so I've created my organization, and now I'm going to put in my rule that says, add a rule. So I'm going to do two things with this rule, because I want to show you something else. So there are actually two purposes to it. So this time I'm saying when a contact of any type is added. Yeah, let's go with that for now. And what's the condition? Contact domain. That's the one we want. I haven't tried this before, but let's see. Should be interesting. boo. That's not what it is, so let's cancel that. That's not the condition I want, so that's a slightly different thing there. That's based on my domain in CiviCRM. So what I'm going to do is approach this a different way. Get to field value comparison. That looks right. What that is. Contact. Email. No. No. It's not right. So let's try it another way. So I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to save that. Save and done. It shouldn't be. It's not going to do anything. So okay, let's try this a different way. Obviously, picked the wrong thing there. Okay, so email address is added. And actually that makes more sense anyway, because I might have an existing contact who adds an email address. And in the same way I could add another rule for removing the email address. Condition. Field value comparison. Let's see if that does it. Yeah. Ooh. So the email, not the location type, the email contains and this is old versus new, right? So I don't care about that. I just want the new. And again, I'm doing a rough and ready example here. It's not, it's not necessarily how I'd do it in the real world, but just to give you an example. So the action this time is I want to create a relationship between two contacts. So no delay again. And the relationship type is employee. And I can pick Amazon because I added them as an organization, so hunky dory. Okay, so I've created that. Let's see if this works now. So I'm going to create a new contact. So I've got Johnny Amazon, or I can so, and I'll say his work email address because I didn't specify a location. This should work. Let's see. Okay. So there's some errors I'm seeing up there. I won't worry about them. In the production system you wouldn't see them necessarily. But the important thing here is I've added my contacts, but in the relationships I have a relationship. Isn't that amazing? So that was rules that did that. It wasn't me because I just put in the email address. But I can see it's created a relationship already. And if I look at Amazon, I can see the relationship the other way. So that's really handy and quite clever actually. If I think about what I could do, I mean, I know there's flaws in the ways I've done it. So for instance, even if someone put amazon.co.uk anywhere in that string, it would potentially match them. I haven't done anything about spot checking. I don't know that that's a valid email address. I'm aware of all of that, but there are use cases where that would be quite useful. So at least having knowledge and information of that. We often work with clients who have organizational bodies as their members, so those bodies will get when I say bodies, I mean they're institutes in their own right, and they will often get a number of seats from their membership. So they get 30 employee seats, let's say. So having the system automatically work out who it thinks is part of that organization is really handy for them, because then you could have an additional rule which then sends out an email to say there's been a new employee added. Is this valid? Is this a current one, etc., etc., and kind of get that communication automated, right? So I'm not having to send them things manually to get them to confirm. The system's all doing it automatically. So there's some examples there of how you could do that kind of functionality. What else can we do in CiviRules? Let's have a look. So in terms of triggers, let's just talk through this stuff. So activities are very useful. If you're an organization that runs like helplines or call-ins or any kind of onboarding, it's really nice when you get an email saying thanks for your call earlier, we're on it, we understand what you're trying to say. Just a generic email like that coming out from the system is really useful. What you're trying to do, especially in this challenging times that we're in, is to make sure you have that connection, that engagement with your supporter base. So anything that you can do that shows that connects with that person within a few minutes of their interaction will really strengthen that relationship. So all this activity stuff is really powerful. Address changes, that might be useful more if you've got changes of location that mean different events or different groups, or things at system level need to change. They're also obviously now with this security and the kind of hacking issues that are going on around the world, it's quite nice to get a confirmation if I did change my address, to say we noted that you changed your address. If it wasn't you, please do get in touch. These are all ways that you can build assurances around your data, and that you're doing the best that you can with GDPR, etc., etc. Campaigns and cases, again, these are useful for internal administration. Historically we get a lot of users saying, I need a report of X, Y, and Z. Those reports are hardly ever opened or read or looked at. So having an email when something happens is far more likely to get read and noticed than an email report, which shows a bunch of records which hardly ever get opened and looked at. So there's an opportunity there to make some of your database administrative tasks much easier to manage and automate them, more importantly. So for instance, in the cases, you might have different case types going to different people to notify them that they're getting created or removed or changed, etc., etc. Contacts added, it's pretty straightforward. Tags and untags. So in the same way we've been adding tags, we can add rules to remove tags. So if someone, we added them to the major donors, but if the last time they donated was over 365 days or 1 year, I may well decide to create a rule that untags them at that point. They're no longer a high donor because they haven't given anything of value in the last year. Not of a single donation. So I might take them out of there. I might move them into a different group at the same time, which is a kind of get them back to the high donor group, or they once gave and they're not anymore. There's all sorts of workflow I could start to build in. But just going back to my previous recommendation, start building something so you can start to harness the power and get to the place that you want to get to. Daily trigger for case, I won't worry about any of this. Group members and event date reach. So this is useful again. If you would traditionally do all this in schedule reminders, but you might have some internal comms that you need to send out, or better formatted comms, or I think in schedule reminders you can use the same message templates now from Richlot's extension, so that's not so much of an issue. It's more for me, having everything in one place is a better solution. Trying to keep all of your automation and workflow in rules is going to lead to a better experience when people when people come into the organization, than having it spread all over the place. That makes it a bit harder. It's not always possible. So for instance, we have some clients where they're quite heavy event users and different event teams doing things in it, and it's often easier for them to set up their schedule reminders at an event level because they're managing that event. But that's kind of down to you guys what you do there. Then we've got group stuff. Let's see what's happening there. Get some questions. Households, individuals, ends, memberships useful if you're trying to replace some of the membership stuff. So when the renewals are coming up, you could send out information about the renewals, what the membership benefits are, how many events someone's been to. You could kind of do all sorts of things like that to make sure there's a touch point before renewal rather than at renewal saying you need to renew. It's always much nicer when you get reminded of what you got out of that before you get asked to renew. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there. I have just been told I've been going on for an hour and a half, so I think it's time to stop. So that's a kind of 101 on CiviRules. Like I said, there's a lot there. If you do have any other questions or suggestions, then please do fire them on CiviCRM.Tea. That's the ideas.CiviCRM.Tea. That's where we're collating all the episodes and what potentially people want to or interested in seeing. And I think let's just go into it. I'll just go into it and see what's top at the moment. So not recent. Most wanted. There was someone said they couldn't see what I was doing on the screen. So if other people are having problems with that, please do shout. So intro to CiviRules. So then the next one, we've got 2 contenders now because we've done Drupal versus Civi. So go Mosaico or configuring web forms for Drupal for Civi. Drupal web forms for Civi. So we need some more votes to decide what to do. So please do jump on ideas.CiviCRM.Tv and let us know what works for you. And as if by magic, my doorbell's gone, so let's call it a day there. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found that useful.